Is it going? Okay. Hi. Welcome to the season finale recap of Once Upon a Time, Season 5. I can and I cannot believe that it's already season finale time. It didn't feel very, sorry, I just nudged everything. It did not feel very season finale-y-ish. Like the time, like I think everything was so big and dramatic, like prior to this episode, and like everything was bam, boom, fast, going, doing all the things, and then this was like, and it was very quiet, and I think it was a very necessary quiet episode. So I liked that. I liked that it was nice and just very calm, and well, it wasn't like super calm, but like it definitely just had me going like, okay, I see we're moving some chess pieces around and we are getting ready to set everything up to move forward to the next season. So yeah, so how are you guys doing? I hope everybody had a good week. I am very tired. I was up very late last night and then I got up very early. And for me, I got up very early and went out with some friends. So I'm very sleepy right now. So hopefully I can stay awake through all this and then we can go on our merry way for the summer break. So let me get all of the things up. And hello. Okay, so let me do the thing and the stuff and the yeah. All right, so yeah, this week it felt, first of all, like I feel like there were zero commercials. Like I came in about 15 minutes late to the episode. I had it on the DVR, but like I came in 15 minutes late because of dinner and family stuff because, you know, it started an hour earlier. And it took me like the first full hour to catch up to like going through the commercials just because there were no commercials, which I'm not complaining about because I like no commercials, but I don't like it when I'm behind, when I'm 15 minutes behind and I have to not be recording all the things or like, you know, writing everything down as I'm thinking of it. So yeah, it was a little bit weird that there were like 4 commercials throughout everything. But other than that, you know, it was a very quiet episode comparatively to other episodes this season. And I'm going to talk about the full, like the overarching stuff of the season. Just because to me, this felt like a very disconnected season, but there was some definite undercurrents happening. But overall, this was very, more than any other season, I think this has been very like disconnected A plot, B plot for this season's split. So I'm kind of looking forward to next season if they are going to be like, we're going to hang out in Storybrooke and just kind of chillax in here. We're going to stay at home for a while. So I'm looking forward to that idea, just to see maybe hopefully we put on the brakes a little bit. But yeah, 2 hours of, I even said something a very long time ago about like, I would be totally okay if just like the finale was just like 2 hours of group hugs and therapy sessions. And I kind of got that. That kind of happened. And I know that there's a lot of people who are very upset, unhappy about how they treated with the whole thing with Regina and treating the Evil Queen as a separate entity from Regina herself. And I get that, but because I now have like all of these ideas, like therapy ideas in my head, like I've been psychoanalyzing Regina all episode. Exactly what an unlicensed counselor should be doing. I don't have my license yet. So it's been very like, just, I'm going to talk at length about that idea later, just because like I get where people are coming from, but I also really like, I get where some people are coming from, but I also feel like they don't understand fully like how it is a coping mechanism for what happened and what's going on. So there's that. Yeah, but there were like a lot of things that Regina was talking about. Like it felt very much like, I want to put you in therapy because you really need to stop living in the past all the time. So yeah, that's where I'm thinking at. My thinking on Regina is at least a surface level, but I have a lot of thinky thoughts about Regina. Hello, I see people popping in the chat. Please say hi if you're watching. I do see there's several people watching who have not said anything, so please feel free to say hi. Okay, so let's start at the top, and how I was very confused about a dirigible being in the opening credits, in the title card, because I was expecting the title card to, I wasn't expecting anything in this episode, because I just, like, we kind of resolved everything of this half of the season last episode, and we were just kind of like, okay, now what's gonna happen with, we have 2 more hours, so like I wasn't expecting anything, but like a dirigible really threw me for a loop. And a lot of the things as we went into the diner with the wake for Robin, there were a lot of tiny little details that stuck out more than just like, okay, Regina's sad and Zelina's going to be there for her sister now, and like still kind of just irritated about like Regina's misdirected anger, and like I like just it is all goes back to Cora and Cora manipulating Regina's line of thinking of like, you know, your number one priority should be your sister now, and like kind of no, because no, and also no, and have you considered no? So aside from all that, we had a nice little moment of the Merry Men and Granny actually toasting Robin's memory, and then like they pulled back the camera and there's little tiny Roland with a little glass of chocolate milk, also toasted. I was like, oh, Roland, the whole thing with Roland just makes me more upset than anything else with all of this, everything that's happened. And I do think that this was the last episode that he's going to be in, maybe ever. Like, I know that Zelina did say like, oh, we'll come and visit, we'll bring your sister along, and pretty sure that's not going to happen. I think when Roland went with the Merry Men back to Sherwood Forest, it's like, okay, goodbye. So, and that's, you know, that's also really great for Regina as well. So yeah, lots of just like everything with this storyline. I am kind of glad that I'm going to tie this in a little bit later with Regina's overarching story of what happened at the end, just because like I have so many thoughts about everything. So put that aside. I'm going to I have my sticky notes now, so I'm going to make a little note for myself to talk about that a little bit later. And we see there's Violet's still here. And she still is, you know, trying to comfort Henry and be like, I was so afraid I'd never see you again. And I'm going to click this pen if I keep it in my hand, so I'm not going to do that. And so we like just kind of pop in on just like how like Henry's just bummed because his other stepdad, like his whole thing this episode was just like, you know, he's so upset that he can't do anything to fix his parents' problems, and like he's afraid that like all of these extraneous things are going to be the cause of more of his parents' problems, and like that's fine, but also at the same time I'm just like, you're a kid, you're 13, 14 years old, you do not need to worry about that is not your job to worry about your parents, sweetie. Like it's their job to worry about you, and like he's taken some initiative on things he doesn't need to be taking initiative over. It's not his job to they need to take care of him, not the other way around. So I had some thoughts about that. We have Captain Swan holding hands, and like, so the whole thing, I guess, is where we start with the Regina storyline of this episode. Like Emma totally, it's understandable where she's coming from with this whole like, okay, I'm just worried because like her boyfriend's dead, and the last time this happened, that's how everything else came to be, is because that happened. So she has a good reason to be worried, but at the same time, like, it's putting a lot of lack of faith in the changes that Regina has made to come back from being the evil queen. But luckily, we also have Killian, who is there being like, yeah, but she's made some progress. Like, he's doing the thing where he's like, you know, put your trust in me to change and like be a different person and come overcome my darkness. So like maybe throw Regina a bone here as well. Like, it's perfectly within his like rights of being like, yes, I like coming from another former villain, like just maybe chillax, it's fine. So like I liked that he's the one fighting for Emma to give Regina a chance to be like, you know, to not sink into the depth of darkness that Regina had been originally. And like she is in a much better place about it. Like she had this whole speech later that I loved that I will talk about in a little bit. Just talking like overcoming and like not being the same person that she was before. Like the whole overarching theme is like, as much as she could become the evil queen again or retake up that identity again, it is like something, it's something that would be much harder just because of the changes that she personally has made and like how she constantly is now striving to be a better person. She's not always a better person, but she's getting there. So like it's a complicated path to walk, and she's a complex character. And people again tend to simplify that a little bit. And like I know that I get on Regina's case a lot, but it's because I know that she can be better. So when she does fall down, I'm just like, girl, come on, sis, listen, like let's go. Right. And then Rumple's doing a thing with the crystal, where he's just trying to take more magic because Rumpelstiltskin and reasons, I guess. I get that he's trying to like force Belle out of this magic coma that she's in, but like that's like he's trying to use, I feel, the opposite of true love to wake Belle up. And like, yes, that's the like, I'm just going to go with that. He's trying to use the opposite of true love. He's trying to force her to wake up and come back to him. And it's like, it's more backsliding. Like, I know I talked about this all last season, and we haven't really talked about it a lot this season, just because like Ripple's kind of been a secondary character. At least for most of 5B, like we haven't really seen much of him other than like he's trying to not let anybody take his unborn child. So like I get it that this is just kind of out of nowhere because Rumple's kind of been out of the picture for most of this half of the season, and actually most of the first half of the season, since he was in a magic coma or being chained up in Emma's torture dungeon. But it was like a little bit, I guess it seems a little bit odd just because like we haven't really been dealing with like just how far gone Rumple has been. Like it's just another constant backslide, particularly after he got like the second chance of having all the darkness taken out of him. And then like now he has more. So it's like, again, it's like giving a crack addict crystal meth. Like it's like, and that's the whole thing. Like they've been treating the darkness like dealing with addictions since the beginning. Like it's always been talked about like that. So like it's not surprising, but at the same time, I'm just like, okay, now how are we going to get rid of this guy? Because things and stuff and like bad guys. And I don't know. I have to think about Rumple some more just because it's surprising, but it's not surprising at the same time. Of just like, it's that thing where he's like, he's hit rock bottom, but he's brought a pickaxe and he's ready to keep digging. Like, come on, dude. So he's just trying to get all of this magic ever and like possibly some god powers because it's the Olympus crystal. And then stuff happens. I did like, this is, again, I noticed more like little details from the diner. When Emma walked in the door to like very gently break the news to Regina of like, hey, so your boyfriend's dead, but mine's not dead anymore. That's really weird. Ha ha, it's really funny that like I get what I want and you don't. And when the door opened, like there was this tiny little strain of music in the background that sounded very much out of a Wild West movie or like a spaghetti western. Just this quiet little whistle in the background and some little twangs, and I was just like, well, I mean, sure. It felt very like, okay, we're gonna have this confrontation, you know, we're gonna meet at high noon on Main Street. And then Rumpelstiltskin ruins everything again by making magic happen. And then because Killian is always trying to make sure that Emma is safe, he bursts in, and then everybody finds out that Killian's alive again. And there was possibly the best moment of the episode, not including, like, even including the lift kiss, which was a very touching moment. There was the Captain Charming hug. You just saw in the background just Dave and Killian just embracing each other, and I was like, okay, everything else is fine now because we proved that David actually does care about him. So we go to Gold's thing, magic light beam destruction zone. I'm not really sure what happened in this clock tower, but something happened where he melted all the things, and so they decide we're going to go and stop him because we have to. And then Emma and Regina fight. And this was honestly like the sneak peek that was released for this episode. Like, it had people all pissy because, like, you know, people are like, oh, well, this is the same thing that Regina did last week to Emma. And I was like, okay, but maybe wait for the full content. Like, I am fully on board with everybody who's like, maybe let's stop doing sneak peeks because I would really like that to happen because too many fights happen because of them, because we don't have the full context, which is, you know, it is like, like the thing with Regina being so upset right now is like, she has every right to be upset about everything. And like, Emma is also like, in like, they're both right. It's Captain America Civil War, the TV episode, only with, you know, brown-haired feminine Iron Man and blonde blonde Captain America, femme Captain America. I just realized that they both fit the settings pretty well. So like, they're both right in their line of thinking, but the ideologies don't match up. So like, it's like Emma is totally within her right to be like, okay, so you might go crazy and destroy everything again because, like, you have a track record for doing that. And Regina is also, like, in her right mind of thinking, like, I'm angry and upset and I need to channel that somewhere, so that's what I'm going to do. And, like, that's what she wanted to do. Which, again, it's like, perfectly fine that that's what she wanted to do because that's what Emma wanted to do last episode. She's like, I can't sit on the sidelines like you guys want me to because I need to do this to be able to put Killian's memory to rest. Like, that's what she had to do. But I guess the part that didn't sit well with me, like, personally, was like Regina saying, when you're upset, we follow you down to hell, but when I'm upset, I get put in timeout. Because, like, that's not what she's saying. Like, that's not what Emma is trying to say. Like, that's not, like, you made that conscious decision to, like, do that. And, like, I don't know, that part of it just kind of really sat wrong with me. And I realize that, like, Regina's speaking out of being hurt, and, like, it's that she's speaking from a place of hurt, but, like, it still just kind of sat badly with me because it just, I've been feeling like that's what's been being, I could speak words. That's the line that's been repeated by some members in fandom, like, over and over again. Like, well, they just follow her around because, like, sure, she forced them to go down to hell with her. Well, like, yeah, it just, like, by saying that, it just kind of removes their Regina saying, like, yeah, we're gonna come with you. Like, it's, I don't know. It's that weird with me, like, that a couple of lines, like, of what was said between them, just a couple of things did sit badly with me, and that was one of them. And there was one in the apartment in New York City, the magical rent-free apartment in New York City, which I think everybody's just like, how has the landlord not like evicted or like done anything for this apartment yet? Because really, in Manhattan, like that's a little bit ridiculous. There's the conversation there too. Like she said a couple of things that really like just kind of stuck badly with me. Like, no, you're like, it's Regina speaking from that selfish place again that she goes to, and which again is fine because that's just part of her character. But it's like when she's saying that to Emma, who is my favorite, and I will wrap her in blankets and protect her from when Regina is being mean to her. That's when it starts to just kind of like go, okay, maybe back off a little bit because you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, so the scene there was really, really good. But like and like that was another sneak peek too, and like it again was taken out of context, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but like it's like the full context of that scene was a really good scene, but again, just like one little, like the thing about Emma going to the precipice of darkness and then getting pulled back, like I'm pretty sure that's not what happened. Like she went, like she had to embrace the darkness to be able to save Killian's life and turn him into Dark Hook. So like, even though that was going dark out of love, that's still embracing the darkness. And like, so I'm pretty sure that's still, yeah, she went there. So like it sits badly in the pit of my stomach. But again, it's Regina speaking out of a place of hurt, and that's what she does a lot and best. So yeah, so Emma sends Henry back to the house, and he doesn't listen, and he instead he was definitely being Emma and Neil's son this episode. He was being kind of petulant, as Neil had a tendency to be, and he definitely had their sticky fingers for a lot of it. Like in this instance, when he cracked his grandfather's safe and stole his money. I just laughed. I was like, oh, you are so your parents' child. So yeah, he stole all of the money in the safe, or a good chunk of it. We had, let's see. Oh no, what happened? There we go. So we had him stealing all his grandfather's money. We had him running away with Violet after giving this very long speech about how magic is bad and whatnot. Operation Mixtape. Okay. And he's destroying magic for the greater good. Anytime anybody says that this is for the greater good and this is for, it's maybe not the case. Like that's maybe not what needs to happen here. And then something. So this struck something with me. So we go back to the loft where they're trying to figure out what's going on with all this magic stuff. And Henry's gone. Regina is wondering where he went. And then Gold came in, and he's mad because Henry stole the Olympian crystal, and he stole all this money in the pen, and he ran away to New York. Like he made it look like he was going to Boston, but he's in New York. And I'm remembering from season 3 when we were talking about how Henry could be the key to Gold's demise. And this episode really kind of, it called back to that quite a lot. It called back quite a lot to the fact that like Henry could be Gold's demise because he's getting rid of magic and he's doing his best to just undo everything that Gold was doing or his moms were doing. Just because like it was just tearing the family apart. So I found it very interesting that like it's a very faint callback to that happening, but at the same time, like it's still there. And I'm very interested to see if moving forward, since Gold is somehow popped back from the Land of Untold Stories to Storybrooke, What's gonna go on with that? If we're gonna continue, because like we have, since Henry is the author and he can like just kind of do this stuff now, like call away Gold's magical powers to him, or the sword, like the opening crystal. I'm very interested to see if we're going to continue kind of calling back to Henry is the source of Gold's demise, or if that's just going to be kind of an unresolved thing. I'm not really sure, but I am pretty interested to see if that comes back into play, because it would be kind of poetic if Henry could overcome what his father was not able to overcome and be able to actually like put an end to Rumpelstiltskin. I think that would be very interesting, an interesting way to go about it, of like the bloodline of the Savior and the Dark One to be the defeat of the Dark One himself. So that would be, and I think that would be something interesting to play with. I don't think they're going to go that direction, but again, I don't know because I'm not on the writing staff. So, but that was an interesting callback. So Em and Regina book it out of Storybrooke to go find Henry, and just Zelena just starts sending people home because somehow like we have the Merlin's wand, the sorcerer's wand, Merlin's wand. I guess it's Merlin's wand. We just never really talked about that, I guess. Like we didn't really say, hey, we have your wand and that's how we got here. So so we just create a door and send people through the door, and I guess we just got rid of most of Storybrooke this way. I guess. Like, I'm not really sure who's left. Like, Granny got left behind, and Baby Robin got left behind, but, like, kind of everybody else left. So, like, did everybody leave? Like, I'm very interested to see, like, who is going to be here next season? Like, did the dwarves leave? Like, who left? Was it just the Camelot people? Was it, like, I know Merida left. So, like, the Dunlock people left. Like, just who left Storybrooke? I'm very confused about this. I'm looking forward to seeing who's left, or if, like, just there's just new people now. For some reason, I don't know. We didn't really touch on that, which is fine because we were dealing with a lot of things. It was very quietly dealt with. We were dealing with a lot of things this episode, and it's just things happen. So yeah, Zelena's sending people home, and Emma and Regina are leaving Storybrooke to go find Henry. And then because Henry brought the magic crystal that has all of magic in it now, he brought magic to the land without magic. We find this out because Emma and Regina find Henry's cell phone in Boston, and then Regina pitches it into a trash can where it catches on fire. And I was like, wow, we really overheated the cell phone. But then Emma put it out with her magic, and they're both like, crap, this is bad. And then we had the scene with Roland leaving. So I'm going to guess Roland he's going back to Sherwood Forest, and he's just not going to be around anymore. I mean, it's like, on the one hand, like, that's fine because it's, you know, leaving Roland with people who he's familiar with. He's known Little John and the Merry Men his entire life, so like he's comfortable with them, and like they're going to teach him how to be, you know, a wise and noble person like his dad was. So like that's fine. On the other hand, like he didn't get to say goodbye to Regina, who was another person he's probably very comfortable with. So like it's probably the best case scenario for him to leave, and that way we have one less young child character to worry about. Where did they go? Also, because he's a small child, he's going to be growing up, and so like we'd have to kind of hide the fact that Roland is now like 11 in season 7. So yeah, I think that was a decent way of like kind of letting him go. And like it was nice that they actually like gave it was a sad thing they actually cut out the scene where Roland and Robin and Regina like we were supposed to have a scene last episode, but it got cut. And it's kind of sad that like we didn't get to see that happening on screen, that Roland had one last moment with his dad. But it is nice that we as an audience got to say goodbye to Roland as well, and it wasn't nearly as tragic as saying goodbye to Robin was. So that was a thing. So yeah, and he gave Zelena a feather from one of his papa's arrows to give to Regina, and that got me a little bit. And then when Zelena tried to close the portal, everybody except for Granny and Baby Robin got sucked into the portal and sent to somewhere. We don't find out what happened for a very long time, where they went. We don't know. We didn't know what happened to them for so long that I'm actually kind of impressed that they went that long before revealing what was actually going on. And I know that like a lot of people kind of guessed. They're like, oh, we know that it's Jekyll and Hyde and we're bringing this stuff, but like because I was not really paying attention, and like I tend to take the stance of whatever speculation is going on is wrong until proven right. So I was going and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Who are all these people? What's going on? Who are they talking about? And so it was kind of nice to like, nice to see that like fandom was right about something that wasn't complete BS. But also that like it was just kind of nice. Like it's a different direction, and as we saw in the storybooks in the library, they kind of just widened the scope of a lot of things. Like you saw the pictures in the books that Henry was flipping through. There was Paul Bunyan, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's okay. Like there's Paul Bunyan and Don Quixote, and what's that one? It's the one that I didn't. There was a movie. It wasn't Jack Black in the movie that he had. Like I don't remember. Where like he went to this island, and then there were all the little people, and they tied him up on the beach, and were gonna eat him. I think. I don't think I read that book. I know it's. I keep thinking like it was written by an old racist guy, but like most books were, in the late 19th and early 20th century. Some adventurer guy. I don't know who it was. But like I think that was one of the pictures, and like Henry was saying, I've never seen all these things, and like me, and then Violet said, well, maybe if all the people in your book are real, maybe these are real too. And I was like, we're gonna get into some really cool stuff. Like I know we've already brought in Frankenstein and the Wizard of Oz, and like things that are not classically thought of as fairy tales, but now we're bringing in like folklore and other mythology, and like it's really cool to like widen the scope, like just officially widen the scope that much of being like, yeah, all of these American folk tales that are like crazy. Like imagine I realized that the ride of Paul Revere was a real thing that happened, but like because America, it has gotten to be like this legend status of like, he did all these things and he rode through one night and it was only him and nobody else. But like really it was, Paul Revere was only one person amongst a lot of people who was sending this message out that the British were coming. So like, but if you think about it that way, like that could be part of it, or like, watching chopping down the cherry tree, or like, just like, I'm very centered on like American folklore at the moment, but like just these stories that became legendary things, like much in the same vein of Robin Hood. Like maybe Robin Hood was a real guy, or maybe he wasn't. We're not really sure. Or like how we had Mulan, and Mulan was like a real Chinese war hero, but because her story is so astonishing, like it became this giant like legendary thing, and like she was built up to be much bigger than she actually was. So to have that kind of thing with many different, like just different folklore stories from around the world, like we could be bringing in a very large scope of things, and I'm very excited to see that kind of stuff. But even just like modern science fiction, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde being brought in, like that was just different, and it was nice to see something a little different. And we're kind of steering around into other waters, and we're not trying to strictly limit ourselves within the scope of just fairy tales. We're trying to broaden the scope into, we have the core fairy tales, but now we're broadening it into fictional stories, and then I don't know. It's like playing around in my mind of just thinking like any book that has ever been written now has the possibility, or possibly any book that is in public domain now has the possibility of just like widening the scope of like what sandboxes could be played in. And I think that's going to be really fun moving forward. So yeah, I just got really far ahead of myself and went on a really long tangent, but yeah, so it was really nice that we got to go to this new place, and like we had no idea where we were, and like nobody, like even just like trying to get the information, like it was just really weird. Like nobody, like everybody's like, what's going, like where did we go? Like I thought it was like the White House, and like there was just a like earthquake. Like I was like, are we in Independence Day? And like the earth has been shattered around the White House, and like we're like, it was a very weird location to be in. So we're trying to find Henry, and we have Rumple just being a douche to this toll worker. I mean, like I have driven in New York City. I don't really like, it's not bad if you pay attention, like anywhere. If you pay attention, it's not bad. But like I kind of drove through and then to Brooklyn, where I parked my car and I left it in the hotel parking lot because I didn't want it in, like public transportation doesn't require you to drive. But like it is ridiculous how much money you have to pay to get into the city itself. So like, as much as I'm like, well, here's Rumpelstiltskin kind of being a douche and just like choking a guy out for doing his job, I am like, that is a really painful amount of money to pay just to drive into a city. Like it's a douchey thing to do, but I understand where he's coming from. Just saying, like, it's not an unreasonable fantasy to have. It's an unreasonable act, but it's not an unreasonable thought to have, as long as you don't act upon it, like most things. Yeah. And another thing, so like Henry and Violet are walking around New York City, and they're talking about all this stuff that like, my dad told me this, and my dad told me this thing, and he was working on this, and he was doing this. And like, for all that Neil and Henry had face-to-face conversation for maybe like one-on-one about 45 minutes. Like it was like they did not get a whole lot of time together, but he certainly made sure to pass on as much information as possible, like what song he used to woo Emma and what he was doing to get rid of magic. Like there was a lot of information processing happening here. But yeah, I mean, like, I guess if we want to like stretch out the timeline here or there, which is totally possible, whatever, like it could happen, but at the same time, it's still just like, wow, like you, like there's a lot of info dumping happening off screen. So the wand broke, and there's this gardener who's really scared, back to Snowing and Selena and Killian. The scared gardener, the wand's broken. Selena has a line about duct tape that would have been funnier if I didn't dislike her so much at this point. The duct tape line would have been funny. And I legit for a hot second thought, like not for a hot second, for a hot half hour, I really believed that the warden, not the warden, because that was Mr. Hyde. The other guy, the gatekeeper, the black guy who like was wearing all the white, had the white robes, and then he had like, it later turned out that he had the stick that when you do that, it shoots out lightning, and that's what kind of knocks out Mr. Hyde, I guess. But honest to God, I thought, is that guy a Jedi? Because like I just saw the stick and I didn't realize the lightning came from the stick. I just saw him do this, and then there was lightning, and he's dressed all in white, and he has this thing at his side, and I thought, that's a Jedi. And like, Disney owns once, Disney owns Star Wars. It's completely possible. Like, it's a thing that could happen, but I'm just like, maybe not. Like, it could happen, but it also could not happen. Same thing with all the Marvel people. Like, I mean, we mentioned Asgard, so, you know, just saying. I mean, that's probably like an intentional thing too, because like there have been tons of Star Wars references in the entire show, but like, I really legitimately thought that this guy, this gatekeeper, key holder, there were some Ghostbusters moments too, but I totally was just like, that guy's Jedi. And then there was, I didn't know who he was, but he was a weird new villain, and he got right to it, just, strangling Killian, because that's what all the villains do apparently now. But I liked Hyde's mutton chops, and I liked his very fancy cravat, and I liked his fancy stick pin that he had in his cravat. He was a very well-dressed gentleman, and he has a very nice voice for all that he's super crazy. So they're caged up somewhere, the Charmings and Selena and Killian. They're in a super cage for reasons, I guess. And then we go back to Emma and Regina go to the magic apartment that never requires any rent. Henry and Violet were already there apparently, and now they're long gone. And Regina finds a letter from Robin, and she has this little moment. So they have this this goes back to what I was saying earlier. So they have this good speech, and what I liked about it is that Regina is a very self-aware character, and I appreciate that about her, that she gets it, she knows, she's I have had things hanging over my head. It's not, my past is always going to haunt me, but then, I'm sitting here I really want to get out my counseling theories textbook and find the thing that says don't let your past control who you are. There is a specific, I think it's existential therapy. I totally got an A in this class, you guys. I should know this. I think it's existential therapy, where it's you don't allow things that happen in your past to control how you feel in the present. I think there's a couple of therapies that do encompass this thought of don't let what happened, let the past be the past, and let yourself in the present be that person, live within the present. So I think existential therapy and feminist therapy really focus on that. And Regina would really benefit from these lines of thinking. I really just want her to just grab her and sit her down and be okay, stop, because you really hyper focus on the past and who you were, and you're not moving forward because you keep focusing on the stuff that you did in the past, and the people around you have already forgiven you. You have had now by the end of the episode as well, the words have been said, we forgive you. They accept that you did a wrong and that you feel bad about it now, and you are actively working to change to be better. So she needs to really forgive herself. And that has been something that she has really been working on this season, the past 2 seasons even. But it's still something that she struggles with because, again, darkness is where, if we go through the whole, darkness is an addiction kind of thing, then, especially when she is in such a vulnerable moment after losing her soulmate. And she's definitely in a position where she could easily slip back into this addiction. So they have this really good conversation in the apartment about how Regina realizes that she's in the middle, she's stuck and she wants to move forward, but she can't because she feels she has to always fight back this darkness. And again, she has a line that really doesn't sit well with me about Emma not knowing what the darkness is like, and she kind of does. You don't go full dark one without embracing the darkness, just saying. And the other and it annoys me that she's misdirecting her anger. And I realize that she's doing that because she doesn't have, if she directs it to the place where she deserves to throw it at, which is Zelena more than anything else, then she's not going to have anybody, and she wants to keep somebody. So she needs an outlet for this anger. But what Regina is having trouble accepting is that she's doing all this good stuff, and it's good that she's actively choosing to be a good person, and she's choosing to do these good acts, and she's choosing to she's making an active choice to do all these things. But it feels to me she believes that if she does all these good things, then nothing bad should happen to her again. If I'm a good person, then nothing bad ever happens again to me. And that's just not the case. Bad things happen to everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a hero or a villain. That's just you made like it's not the case. Like she gets that like she made these bad decisions and they're going to hang over her because like she has to constantly atone for that. But like there's a point where you have to forgive yourself, and that's the point where you're going to be moving forward. She's having trouble figuring out how to forgive herself, particularly when like, you know, she's probably feeling an immense amount of guilt for what happened to Robin, and like how Robin's death is kind of her fault. So like it's, yeah, she needs to actively choose to let her past go now, and she kind of did in this way at the end of the episode, and she did it in a very visceral way that a lot of people are struggling with, but like it's a valid way to show letting it go rather than just like having a little, like just having a little moment of being like, okay, forgive myself. Like this is a much, for television, that's a better way of showing it, rather like, or it's a more inventive way of showing it rather than just being like, okay, forgive myself. Like it's the way it happened. I think it worked better for this specific kind of storytelling rather than just like letting her just being like, yeah, okay, I forgive myself. Like it felt a little cheaper to do it that way, I think. But yeah, so like Regina just needs therapy. That's where we're at. So I'm going to check in comments really quick. Hi, I haven't looked really here in a little while. Yeah. Okay. So Regina reminds me a lot of Angel from Buffy, and Angel and Angelus are treated as two separate identities, but Angel himself accepts responsibility for Angel. I'm assuming you meant Angelus. And I think that that's a good point, but at the same time, I also feel like this is a way for, like I said, something that I learned in one of my classes is like to be able to tell yourself like, I am not my addiction, or I am not my mental illness, or I am not this thing that is plaguing me that I can't move past. You give it a different name than who you are. So like with Angel and Angelus, they're both different people. Like they're the same person, but they're different identities, and they're treated as two separate identities. And I haven't watched Angel, but I know enough about it because like he kind of showed up here and there in Buffy. So like it is two different, like it is kind of a Jekyll and Hyde situation, which is why it was really good that they kind of introduced Jekyll and Hyde in this episode when they're really talking about it. But you give it a different name. So like if I have an intrusive thought, like if I'm driving home late at night and I'm just like tired and I'm like, what would happen if I just kind of let go of the wheel and crashed into everything? Then I'd be like, well, Susan, then everybody would die. Like I call that intrusive thought Susan. Or like I usually call it like a white suburban mom name. Like, okay, Barbara, thank you for that information. I don't think I'm going to do that. So just like any kind of intrusive thought or any kind, like you just kind of make a separate thing and just tell it to shut up and go away. So like in this case, that is how Regina is coping with her trauma, I think. And like it is traumatic being like this dark evil being who caused all this pain and death. I'm trying to invent new words and they're not coming out of my mouth. So like people who are saying like that, you know, Regina and the evil queen, like Regina was not possessed by the evil queen. Like, no, like we realize that. And like, at the same time, Regina can say like, the evil queen is who I was, and that's a different person than who I am now. And I don't want to become the person that I was again. Like that's a totally valid way of looking at it. And just to say that I don't want to be like the evil queen could come out, like I could slip on this identity again. Like it's a part of her, who she is, but it's a part of her that she doesn't want to be again. Like I could call stupid 16-year-old me Angelica, and I could be like, well, I never want to be Angelica again. But I guess if this boy that I had a crush on when I was 16 years old called me up, I could probably be Angelica again because I'd feel like I was 16 years old again. Like that's kind of a weird metaphor, but like at the same time, like, you know how it feels like when something happens, or like you go back to your hometown and you just like, I feel like I'm 16 again. Like I feel like I'm this dumb high school kid who doesn't know anything because I'm living at home with my parents again. Like after you've been on your own for a long time, like it's a valid way of thinking of yourself as a separate person because that's who you were in the past. And like, those are old clothes that you wore. That's an old identity that you had, but now you were somebody new and you're somebody better than who you were in the past. Hopefully you're a better person than you were in the past. But yeah, so like that is that is a totally irrelevant way of looking at it. So yeah, and I'm really intrigued by the Jekyll and Hyde thing. And I think that like Regina, because she even said, she's like, this is hanging over me, and it's always like the choices that I made as the evil queen are always going to hang over me, and it's karma and all that. Like she even said, like, the choices that I made then, and I could have chosen to forgive Snow, but I didn't, and that's how I donned the identity of the evil queen. Like, she's like, there's this whole thing of like choice, and like she made this active choice, so like she's now choosing to leave that identity behind and like reject her darkness. So like, you know, it is a relevant idea. And just like giving it a different name than who you are. So just saying like Queen Regina, like, no, that's not, like, she is still Queen Regina, but she's not the evil Queen Regina anymore. She's just the queen, or she's just Mayor Mills, or she's just Regina. So it is like, she's just giving it a different name so she can, like, if it's creeping up on her, she can tell it to go, you know, bugger off. So yeah. So yeah. I think, so the question is, the same thing about Rent, with Emma making that much money in 2 years of bail bonds work, because I don't think she ever went back to her boss for her Boston stuff, plus the New York place. And Neil's place. I was rewatching something in season 1, and Emma does at one point off screen go back to Boston and get her boxes, because she only had like 4 boxes of stuff, and then like she did come back. It was like a very brief mention of Emma just saying when she had some stuff at Mary Margaret's place, where she did say that she went to Boston and got her stuff and came back. So like maybe she just let her lease lapse or something. I'm not really sure how that happened. Maybe it was a phone call over the phone, like just a phone call being like, hey, so either sublet it or I will pay the fee to cancel my lease. But I don't think she ever went back for the New York stuff. Unless that happened during the 6 weeks, which is a totally plausible thing that could have happened, because again, who knows what happened in those 6 weeks, that 6-week gap in season 4, because we don't. So that probably happened then, I'm going to guess. And then she closed everything up with there. But I don't know about Neil's place, because she never paid anything for that. And then Regina was the one who gave that information to Robin and Marion / Zelena and Roland. So maybe Regina had something to do with Neil's place. I don't really know. But I do believe that like the Boston apartment, I know for sure that like Emma definitely took care of that off screen. Like it was a very quick conversation and then it was done. But the New York stuff, I'm just headcanoning that it happened in season 4 in the 6-week period, because nothing else, we don't know what happened then. Yeah. So Gulliver's Travel. Thank you, Lucas. That is definitely, that was what I was thinking of. I don't think you're gonna hate it, Jamie. It was a quiet end to the season, and it was necessary. And we went to a lot of new places, and I liked that. But it was still just it was very quintessentially Once is what I put it, with Henry's clap your hands hard enough and Tinkerbell won't die moment. That's what I was calling it. That was it was cheesy and it was very silly, but I was like, this is what Once is at its heart, honestly. Like, it's cheesy and it's silly and it's making wishes and the wish is coming true. Like that at its heart is what Once is. And I was just very happy with that. But I'll get to that in a little bit as well. I know I'm skipping all over the place. Yeah. So yeah. That's a good question. So Kimberly says about the books, I'm wondering if they were always in the library or if they appeared because they were sort of following the author. And that is what I was thinking too. I thought that they kind of just appeared because that's where Henry was. And since he has the magic pen and he was looking for information, then things presented themselves to him. It wasn't precisely what he wanted to have happen, but it was more information for what, like, I think it was trying to steer him towards like, don't do this because look at all of these amazing things that happen with magic existing. And if you take it away, then like bad stuff happens, but I don't know. So Johnny Appleseed would be interesting. I don't know what they could do with him. Like most American folklore in particular, I don't really know what they could do with it. Like Paul Bunyan, he has a really big blue ox. Like, okay, do we need some big trees moving out of the way? I'm not really sure. But Johnny Appleseed, I think it would be fun just to kind of like pop in. Like maybe he can go hang out with Tiny and they could be, you know, doing some farming stuff with the magic beans. So yeah, but that would be really interesting. And I do think that there was a possibility to go outside of the Disney scope to play with a little bit more, and possibly just so we don't have to constantly like be leaving and going to other realms and doing things. So we have a lot of stories that take place like around our world, then we don't have to go realm hopping all the time. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the most paid for a toll is $4.50 one way. Be glad about that, because to drive to school when I drove a very long way to school, it maxed out at like $12, I think, is the most that I ever paid to drive to school. But that's when I came home for a weekend and I drove back. So like it was $12 one way. But once we got an Easy Pass, then the money went down. Yeah, $15 for a toll just to enter the city. It is ridiculous, and it kind of hurt my soul a little bit to just go in and be like, okay, I gotta just here's my Easy Pass, and just I'm gonna pretend that it's not taking a lot of money. And like New York's an expensive city, you guys. Like I know that people say that, and like London is way more expensive, but like it hurts my soul a little bit. I am from Ohio. We break out in hives if we pay more than $20 for anything. So like it hurts. Yeah. That would be interesting. Honestly wondering if Neil didn't just give Henry the supposed notebook and said, everything you need to know about your relationship with your mom and anything else is in here. That would be interesting to be like, here's the Cliff Notes. Or if he just had a journal and like Henry was going through his things later, like maybe that happened too. I'm not really sure. But yeah, Regina needs to, you can't change the past. So she just needs to accept that it happened and like just continue proving that she has changed. Like she just really just needs to go that, like she's done that. She has said, you know, like, can we drop the E? Can we drop the E word? Can we, like, she has just been like, I am trying to move past that. Like if you wanted to look at the two reformed villains in our group, we have like Regina, who just wants everybody to kind of forget that it happened, or just like stop bringing it up because it upsets her, because she doesn't want to think about like all the pain that she caused. Or then you have Killian, who is just like kind of wallowing in self-deprecation about it. So like two kind of extremes on handling it, and like both of them really just need to be like, take a chill pill, like just calm down. It's okay. Like we accept that you've reformed now. Just it's fine. So it is kind of just interesting just how they both, like, again, and Regina and Killian are both very similar. I've said this 1,000 times before. They're very similar characters, just the way that Regina and Emma are like, you know, like two sides of the same coin. So it is just very interesting just to look at them both. Like Regina's just like, I don't want to talk about it anymore because I'm trying to be better. And Killian just like, I know you hate me still because I did all these terrible things, and I'm still a terrible person even though I've done these good things now. And I'm just like, both of you need to take a chill pill. So yeah. So yeah, I know everybody says that to watch Angel. Here's my secret. I hate Angel. Like the character. I hate Angel, and I hate the Angel and Buffy relationship. It really had never clicked with me. I didn't like it. I'm sorry if I just offended. Like I feel everybody gasping because like Bangle, I think, is it Bangle, Buffy, and Angel? I don't know what their ship name is. I am very more interested in the twisted relationship of Buffy and Spike. It's more complex and way, like it's definitely problematic, but like I find it way more interesting than Buffy and Angel. I didn't like Angel. Like I didn't like his character at all. I'm sorry. I just disappointed literally everybody. I'm sorry. I don't like him very much. So I didn't want to watch his show because I'm like, why am I going to watch this guy hate? So yeah. Yeah, so yeah, her memories box didn't live in the bug. So yeah, she did go to do that. So yeah. Yep, the 6 weeks fix, fan fix where Henry and Emma go and bring all the stuff back and take care of all that, and then Captain Swan sexy times, because it's probably happened, but we're never gonna see it on screen. The poor girl who runs has Captain Swan banged yet. That Tumblr, she's going to lose her mind this summer because she's already like at 600 days on this countdown, and she's like, I'm in it now. I can't stop. I need to actually like have something confirmed. Like this poor child, I just want to give her a hug and be like, I'm so sorry you started this. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Just kind of flipping through. All right, so yeah, tolls are ridiculous. I like the fact, so if we're going to talk road trip stuff for a little bit, just for a quick second, I'm not going to get too into this. This is very US centric, so I'm sorry, people who do not live in the United States. But I really like that, like Pennsylvania and West Virginia and like most states have this little thing where it's like you just pay, you just like stop every once in a while, like, yeah, just throw like $1 and change in here and just keep going. Like, I like that. I hate that I have to carry change on me because I don't like having, I'm very particular about the amount of physical money that I carry on me, and I realize it's a very millennial thing to say, which is weird because I lived in a country where I lived in 2 countries where I didn't have a credit card. I just had my debit card, so I could not, like, I had to have cash on me at all times. But like I don't like that I have to have all this change on me, but I do really like the fact that like most states were around where I live, it's just like, yeah, just toss some change in here, just keep driving. There's no like, okay, now pull off and stop and like pay a toll or have the thing scan your thing and just keep going. And like it's way less of a hassle this way. But that's my thing. So yeah, so all right, so now that I'm caught up on comments, we are going to, that's not a comment that I need to, it's not an inbox, that I had a message on Tumblr and I wanted to check to make sure it wasn't anything relevant for this, and it's not, by just another prompt. Let's see, so where did I leave off? So yeah, so Regina needs therapy. That's where I left off with that. So we're talking about, we have this section that's just on magic at the Midtown Library for reasons, I guess. And there's lots and lots of storybooks, and I already kind of talked about just like more storybooks with more real characters. I really like, I do agree with the idea, like it does kind of like step away from Disney a little bit. Like I like the Disney princesses, and I like talking about like all these different ideas that we could be having, and we had just kind of opened up this whole new world. I'm not going to break into song with the Land of Untold Stories, and I like that I'm sure that the like Hyde brought some people back in when he came, because he said, I brought all you my friends, and I'm like, I don't see any. Where your friends? I don't see your friends anymore. So I liked, like, we might be bringing in more stuff with that, and I think that would be interesting, just to kind of fiddle around with that a little bit. There's so many, like, there were the 3 Musketeers that popped up, like, in this part. But yeah, we just bring in a lot more stories and a lot more ideas, and like really just widens the expanse of like what kinds of things we could be playing with. And I think that would be really interesting. So we're going back to this crazy person's mansion. I'm like, I don't know if we have a name for you. I guess like Dr. Jekyll's house, Mr. Hyde's mansion, whatever. So we gave the weird gardener the wand pieces to put back together because that's a smart thing to do. And he goes off and does that. And then Henry's kind of having an angst breakdown because he can't find anything of what's going on. He can't find any way to destroy magic. And I'm just thinking that's because there kind of really isn't a way to actually destroy magic totally. Like we proved that. just with this episode alone, we prove there's no way to actually completely 100% totally destroy magic. But like, and that's like why Neil ultimately failed, because there's no way to just get rid of it. There's just, you know, you can be in a land without magic, but even so, there is still magic that exists. It's just a little bit more hidden. And I liked that too. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit once we get to the dragon, just because I liked this idea. And just somehow this small random library in New York City has like the anti-Holy Grail. I guess because reasons. I mean, sure, like for plot reasons it's there, but I really want to know how did this get here? Somebody please explain to me, because I like plot reasons it's there just because the plot said so. But for the most part, I just want to know, like, okay, so what's the story of how that got there? Just out of convenience, I guess. So we have this thing, and we're going to destroy it, but actually, oh no, just kidding. That's not actually going to happen. Gold comes in and takes the Olympian crystal and knocks Henry and Violet out. And then the mad scientist, Dr. Jekyll, just fixes the wand using glitter and science. Sure. And then I just wrote, hey, the Jedi is back. Because again, I didn't really know who he was. So Dr. Jekyll, we find out the gardener is actually Dr. Jekyll, and then he turns into Mr. Hyde. And they exist within steampunk land. So, you know, that's fine. I liked this idea. So we had we have Emma and Regina finding Henry and Violet, and then Regina's going to use blood magic again to locate Gold using Henry's blood this time. And I liked that suddenly, because Gold had the crystal, that magic kind of wasn't leaking around anymore. Like it's clearly there, but like I kind of took it as, because Henry has it. When Henry had it, we just could use magic and like you know, put out fires and light fires, and with our magic and everything, like find the kids everywhere. But I liked the implications of it. But just that, like, because Henry, who doesn't have magic and is very inexperienced with magical items, like he would have this thing that contains all this power, and like he wouldn't be able to control it. And I like that, like, once Gold has it, then he is able to just like contain it. Like, just think of it as like the crystal kind of like leaks power everywhere. So like, and because it contains so much of it, it can reach across a broad distance. So like, even though Henry is on his way to New York, like he's still close enough to Boston that like the magic still works for them in Boston. So I really like this kind of insinuation that because Gold has the crystal now, like he's in control of it, and it's like he can kind of like weave this magic around it that's not going to let it leak everywhere. So like, it's just tiny things like that. Like, most people probably didn't think of it that way, but like, just I kind of like thinking of it like, oh, because the experienced magic user and the person who's the most experienced with just magical artifacts in general has control of this magical item, like we suddenly like lose the advantage that we had. So that was just kind of an interesting little way of tweaking it to be like, okay, so suddenly the heroes don't have the advantage anymore. Like, just as a storytelling point, like just a little storytelling plot point, like I liked that they used the MacGuffin cleverly enough to do that. So yeah, just trying to thinking of it within a storytelling point of view, like it was just kind of a little clever twist of that. What else do we have? So if somebody can explain to me how Mr. Hyde can use the magic wand to summon a portal, because I thought there were parameters of like somebody who had the potential for darkness or had fallen to darkness but now had the potential for light. Like, there was a balance of like good and evil for magic, and they could do that and use the magical wand. And how can Mr. Hyde use the wand? I mean, I guess they could say that because he's still Jekyll and Hyde and he's still like the good and the bad, mixed together that like he could do it. And like since we saw him like absorbing Zelena's fireball, there's something going on with that I'm very intrigued as to how he could do that. But non-magic users can use the magic wand, I guess. So that's of all the things, that's the thing that I'm most stuck up about this episode. That and Belle going back to being a pawn. Like I realize that she's not there. She's in a box, and we're just using her constantly as this pawn of like, just like, you know, I'll take his wife and I will make him do my bidding. And I'm like, petition to free Belle from literally everybody and just letting her go. Because even like in the weirdly modern hotel room, like he's just like super like it's super like, I'm gonna make you wake up and I'm gonna make you like do all this thing, and then we're gonna see the world together and we're gonna love each other. And I'm like, okay, sure, like like it's I don't know, I just don't like it very much. It's creepy and I just don't like it. So yeah, so Hyde summons a portal, and wow, who would have guessed? I certainly didn't guess that Gold would have chosen to save the magical artifact over saving Belle again. I'm not going to talk about it. So I like that this is kind of just the land of untold stories, is like a refugee land. I like that there's the Three Musketeers and all these people whose story, like, I kind of find it kind of curious that the land of untold stories is like people whose stories haven't been told. Like, I'm curious as to how that works. And maybe it was explained a little better, but I was trying to like think of other stuff. But like the stories have been told, they've been written down, but I'm curious as to what's going on. Like, I don't know, it's worded weird. Like, it was worded weirdly that like these are people who are refugees from their worlds, and like their stories are not being told. And like, I don't know, it's like I don't know. I guess I'd have to think about that a little bit more, just because like it has a lot of potential. But at the same time, it's like it was a little bit weird, just because like these stories have been told. So like, in what context now are they not being told? So I don't know, maybe their stories aren't finished, or I'm not really sure. I don't know. So yeah. So this is where we get into some real Ghostbusters stuff happening. And I think that was even like capped off with the fact that like the bellboy or the delivery guy was like listening to like 80s music. And I was like, are we only able to license music from the 1980s? Cause like, this is really bizarre. But like, like we have this ominous cloud over one hotel in New York. And then we have this guy with this food cart walking up to this door, and there's like all this ominous light. And I was really expecting Robert Carlyle to be dressed in like the really floaty thing and be like, are you the keymaster? I am the gatekeeper. I'm just like, I mean, sure. Yeah, I was getting some real Ghostbusters vibes. And you know, like, good job not killing the bellboy like I thought you were going to do, Ruckle. Like, good job. I like that Granny texts. I thought that was a tiny details. I just enjoyed that Granny just sends text messages, be like, hey, FYI, everybody's missing. And then like Regina and Emma are gonna go storm the castle, as it were, and like Emma's just like, wait, we need to approach this smartly. And I, like, as soon as the door was knocked on, I was really hoping, like, just because my mind immediately goes to cracky kind of places, I was really just hoping for there to be like a like just they're showing up in these really bad disguises, like open the door and there's Regina wearing a fake mustache and like an old-timey bellboy hat, and like that wouldn't have flown at all, but just like the idea of it just kind of delighted me to be like, that would have been just silly. So I hope that there's, you know, some kind of outtake of being like, oh hey, you don't know it's me. So she's gonna go, she's pretending to go dark to dupe Rumpelstiltskin, which, you know, I'm like, I even said right then, I was like, and how quickly does he know that she's actually just trying to pull his leg? Which turned out to be right away. So Mr. Hyde can absorb magic, which is good. You know, that's always a useful skill to have, but also how. Rumple knows. And then I think Henry had the cup. Like I originally said that Henry has the hat, and it turns out that, and I'm pretty sure that he didn't have the hat, just kind of like the way it was shiny, like looked like it. So Henry has, I think it's the cup, like the anti-Holy Grail, I guess that's what we're going to call it. And he just kind of sucks everything into it and destroys magic, I guess. Yeah, because I initially thought that he had the hat, but I don't know where the hat is, or like how Henry would have found it, or how he would have been able to open it, because you need to be able to have magic to open it. So probably it was the cup somehow. He just did that. Yeah. I don't know why I made this note about, there was a weird commercial for me about Nikolai Coster-Waldau, the guy who plays Jaime in Game of Thrones. There was a really weird commercial with him, like practicing kissing with his co-star from something else, and I was like, this is really weird. Anyway, so we separate Jekyll and Hyde with this magic potion thing for reasons. And it kind of opens up some interesting ideas of just like separating yourself from your darkness. And like, that's what, like even Jekyll was just saying, like, I made this to like kind of separate like the dark, like somebody's dark side from their good side. But I didn't have the right ingredients. So I just like kind of really enhanced the darkness. But now I have the right ingredients and I can fix this. And it kind of leads to, again, some interesting conversation again with Regina's discussion of like trying to be this separate person, like trying to leave her darkness behind her, and separate, like just trying to not be who she was anymore, and like trying to put her darkness behind her, even though she does struggle with it all the time. So I can see why they introduced him when they're trying to talk about this plotline specifically. So Hyde tries to kill Jekyll because, you know, that happens. And then Killian comes in and like slams Sook into his back and was like, no, you don't, and like just toss him to the side. And then they gather all the things and they leave, and we go back to Regina and Rumple are trying to find the dragon, and they're talking about how Regina's struggling with the darkness, and how she's always like at war with herself, and like Rumple's saying that like he's like, I tried to put it to the side and I tried to be separate of who I actually was, and I tried to be a different person, but I realized that I liked it. I like the darkness and I like being this person. And Regina just going like, well, I don't like it and I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to do this. And like, again, like it's a really good conversation of just like how she's trying to separate herself from all of this and trying to just be a better person than who she was, and just trying to completely separate from all the stuff that's happening. So yeah, and then like there was a weird note about like the only hope that we have in the world is if you win this battle over yourself with the darkness, and like that was kind of a weird note, and I think I'm definitely misquoting it. I'm definitely not remembering it correctly, but like it did kind of come across as like the hope of the world is that Regina overcomes her darkness, which I thought was a bit strange because like she's not the most powerful dark person ever to exist. Like that's the guy standing next to her. So that was kind of weird, but it was kind of a nice insinuation that like Rumple kind of can't be saved, but Regina can. And like Regina's darkness is not so severe that like she can't come back from it ever. So that was kind of nice to think about. All right, so we go into the dragon. I'm gonna make the pun. We go into the dragon's den, and we have this lotus blossom for reasons, because the man is Asian, I guess. We're gonna probably racism. And so we have this moment of like, we find out where everybody is. We find out that their family is all in the land of untold stories, and that we're trying to open this portal, but the dragon's magic is not strong enough to actually do this. But he says, you know, you have the power to do this, and you can totally like do this. There's lots of little bits of magic in this realm if you are willing to see it. And I just liked this little insinuation that like magic, like, you know, just because we don't have people like flying around or transforming into dragons or anything like that, that doesn't, like, this is the land without magic, but it's without the types of magic that I guess the characters are used to, and that would be different to them than like, you know, just somebody on the street pulling a quarter out from behind somebody's ear. Like, that's magic. Or like they're just you know, card tricks, like little tiny magical pieces. Or even like we could go, again, I know I've talked about this before, like we've talked about if we want to incorporate the Princess and the Frog, and just like voodoo is a type of magic, and just like different ways of expressing it, I think. And I like the idea of being able to, I'm trying to think how to express this. I just like the idea that magic exists in more forms than just like you wave a magic wand and something happens. Like magic is in the little things that you believe in. Magic is Santa Claus. Like maybe this is their way of being like, yeah, Santa Claus is real. And the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny and all of that too. So just like, it was just like leading into this moment up with Henry in the fountain was just, again, such a once thing to do, of just like, you know, magic is there. You just have to look for it, and you have to believe that it exists. And like, yeah, Rumple made the point of like, you know, just because you believe something doesn't mean that it actually is true. But like, at the same time, like something with this in somewhere in the place where like magic isn't abundant, like believing that it exists makes it an easier place to live in, rather than just like making it all about hopelessness and despair and all of that. So yeah. And I did like that the dragon was just like, yeah, you know, just remember what your friend August told you. And I was like, but he didn't really teach her much. So he kind of abandoned her when she was an infant. So yeah, I liked that they kind of went into, like, it's so cheesy. Like, so we go to this fountain and we're flipping coins in the fountain, and we're making wishes to bring them back. And it's so cheesy, but it is such like a centrally once upon a time moment that it just kind of made me so glad, because it's like, it's very silly. It's very like, really, like we're wishing them back. But then you're like, no, this is what the show is about. This is what the show is about. Tiny little cheesy moments of like happiness and happily ever after. And like making a wish in a fountain is just enough for that to actually happen. But it's just so silly. Like they flip the coins into the fountain and the crystal starts to spark back to life. And so Henry then gets this idea, because he's 13, 14 years old, and is like, I'm going to climb up upon this Merlin and just start grandstanding to the people standing around this fountain. I mean, it's not like it's uncommon for people to be grandstanding in New York City, but it's not like it wasn't weird, but it was just like, but then I realized that it's his, you know, if you clap your hands hard enough, Tinkerbell won't die. It's the Peter Pan moment of just like, clap your hands really hard and, you know, let Tinkerbell know that you believe in her and she'll keep living. And then, you know, maybe she lives, maybe she doesn't. So it's Henry being the truest believer and getting everybody else to believe, and they're all flipping coins into the fountain. And then and then there's like, I like that it flipped to the others in the land of untold stories, and it just has them like coins falling out of the sky, and they're like, what the heck is going on here? And then Snow immediately realizes like they're not pennies, they're wishes, and then the portal had opened up, and so they all jump in, and then they come back and they just wish them back using pennies. Like, it's just little bits of real life instances of what we believe to magic, and it was really, I don't know, it was really just nice. Like, it was a nice little moment that was very quintessentially Once Upon a Time, and I really appreciated it. Yeah, so, and then like, so they left Hyde behind, and then like the people of New York City just kind of thought like, oh, this is a really cool street act, and like Henry kind of gets down, but like, you know, we got them to believe for a little bit, so that's something. Yeah, so and so somehow Rumpel escaped into the portal when we weren't looking. I don't remember if we were doing when we were doing the pan shots of like everybody reuniting. I don't remember if he was there, if like we saw him at one point or not, because that portal was not open for long. So I do not remember like how quickly he jumped into it, but he must have. So he's kind of making a deal with Hyde, and then we go back to the apartment in New York City, and we can't find Rumple because he's in another land now, and Regina's kind of moping around on the roof, and there's a lot of rooftop patios in New York, more than I expected there to be. And I just kind of appreciated this moment was Snow going to talk to Regina instead of Emma, because we've kind of shown that like Emma is not that great at talking to Regina when she gets like this episode. There were two conversations that should have gotten a little bit better than they did. And it was a nice moment for like Snow to just be like, hey, like I, know that like I was there, and I know what you've been like, and I know how you're trying to like overcome all this stuff about you. But like, if I am on your side, then like, nothing else can go wrong, because like Snow is the first person that Regina is trying to like really get rid of. So it was just a nice moment for them in particular, to like have this little moment of like, I believe in you and we can do this. But I just kind of, at the same time, I was just like, oh, maybe not a good idea to make Regina separate herself. There was a lot of evil necklace. There was a lot of evil hair, and there was a lot of evil cleavage happening when Regina separated herself. And I did kind of have a little chuckle at like, somebody, I think it was Snow, said like there's a moment of disorientation. Maybe it was Emma that said it. There's a moment of disorientation after the separation, and we can use that to get rid of her. That was a really, really long moment of disorientation, and maybe it got prolonged because Emma magicked the chains onto her, onto the evil queen. But yeah, that was a really long moment of disorientation. And there was a bit of a bait and switch for a minute, where I did think that Regina was not going to rise above it, but she did, and she crushed the heart, which I found interesting, that she crushed the evil queen's heart, but it didn't affect her. Maybe because they became two separate people, like the darkness went more to, like the darkness of Regina's heart got reborn into a new heart, into the evil queen. I'm not really sure how heart magic works. I do not have a PhD in magical heartology, but yeah, that's yeah. So I knew it wasn't really going to be that simple, but it did seem like it was really weird when she showed up at the end of the episode too, in front of the dragon. She took the dragon's heart. I'm going to come back to the Storybrooke stuff in a minute. But like, it was really bizarre that like she just kind of reformed somehow, and I'm not really like sure how that happened. And I don't expect them to explain it, but like she crushed her heart. So maybe like they might try to explain it of like, well, Regina's still alive, so this other part of her is still going to live because whatnot. But like the heart got crushed. So like I'm not really sure like how that really works. I mean, you know, I'm not really expecting it to be explained. I'm fine with that, but it still just seemed a little bit weird. Like she took the dragon's heart, and it was my thought was like, is she going to use that in her own chest instead of the dragon? Because like I don't know. I'm very confused as to what's going to happen with this separate evil queen person doing things, but I don't know. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But to go back to, I made a note about talking about the evil queen as a separate identity, and I did talk about that quite a bit of just like how it's a coping mechanism for traumatic things and just for trying to overcome things in the past. Like it's a totally common psychological thing to do. And now I don't remember what my thought was for like Roland leaving. Like Roland leaving without saying goodbye, like that would have been something I think that if she had really like had time to process that or like know about it beforehand, like that would have really kind of fueled her darkness more, just because like she didn't get to personally say goodbye to this kid who she probably thought was like another child for her, specifically, especially because like Regina cannot have any more children. That was probably something that really would have motivated her more, I think, to really consider like getting this darkness out of her, just because like she doesn't want to drown in it anymore. Like, and it is probably something like a depression thing too, like just trying to find some way to control it. But yeah, so that probably wasn't the best idea, but you know, had to get rid of him, I guess. So just to jump back from the end, we come back to Storybrooke, and I really liked this. For when Violet started talking about her dad, I was really just like, what are we going with here? And then we brought it back to the thing with the books and all these other stories, and we have the Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. And I was like, now that is a really it's so cheesy, again, quintessentially once, but like it's super, super cheesy and like really just, I don't know. I thought it was like, I was just like, all right, they went there, but I appreciate this throwaway line about like, oh yeah, by the way, this happened. Like, it was like, just for a guy who was on screen once, it really felt like it was a less impactful Face of Bo moment, you know, from Doctor Who when they revealed who the Face of Bo is, or who it could be. Like, it just kind of was casually mentioned, like, oh yeah, here's that's been fixed. And like literally everybody was just like, wait a second, what? So like, this is a very less impactful, like kind of nod to that reveal, but it was still just like, all right, I respect that. I like that. That was kind of fun. And then Henry and Violet have their first kiss, and please don't make the dog bark. Thank you. And of course, like, you know, Emma and Regina are just like, okay. And he's just like, please don't tease me about this. I don't want to be teased about it. And I don't want to. So it was just kind of funny. So they go and they're going to go like show Dr. Jekyll around, and Emma kind of hangs back with Killy and is just like, okay, so because you pointed out that I don't say this unless one of us is in danger or is gonna leave, and you know, and then she just has like that little last moment of like, you can tell she's nervous because she's like, this makes it like they've said it before, but it's never just been like a really casual, like everybody's safe and happy and fine moment. It's always been like just kind of a quick reminder. So just to have the little moment of like her like, okay, I can do this. This is fine. It's like, if it's nothing bad's going to happen. And then she tells him that she loves him. And it's just a nice full circle moment of like, the first time she said it was right before this bad stuff happened. And now she says it in a quiet, calm moment where there is bad stuff going to happen. But for right now, she's taking advantage of the quiet moments. And then he doesn't respond, but instead he kisses her and then like picks her up and just like I've seen the little behind the scenes things at this point. I made sure to go and watch those videos now that that between when the episode ended and when this started. So like there is definitely just like, you know, like hooking his arms underneath and like lifting her up. So I was just like, there's some serious liftage happening. I was just like, okay, I'm happy now. And then Regina destroys the Olympian crystal I guess she disintegrates it by releasing all the magic back into Storybrooke. So like it's not all tethered into one thing, and then Storybrooke can actually exist on its own without magic being tied into it. Or like it can actually exist again with magic and not going to worry about being disintegrated or anything, which I think is what the worry was, that like because it was created magically, then not having any magic in it, it would start to deteriorate or eventually like undo itself. Which might be a throwaway line, but might also hint towards later stuff. I'm not really sure. But and then Hyde shows up and is just like, I brought my friends, and I'm like, you didn't bring any friends with you. I'm sorry. So now we have, you know, he's there, and then the Evil Queen is wreaking havoc in New York City for reasons, and yeah. So okay, so that's everything that I have, and I'm gonna go back up into comments. So hang on, let me take a drink and find all the things. All right, more talking about tolls, and I made everything about parking in the comment. Or driving tolls in the comment. I'm sorry. Yeah. So Hyde's buddies, I'm like, there's nobody. Hyde doesn't have any friends. I was trying to kind of look around to see, and I think I was trying to pick somebody else out. Like they were talking about the marketplace scene in the Land of Untold Stories, and I was kind of like looking, and there were some people dressed in very like probably from like Arabian Nights, things like that. And I was really trying to like pick out anybody else, particularly after they did the very obvious Three Musketeers reference. And I was trying to like pick out like, okay, is there anybody else obvious, or is this just like a thing? So like maybe if we're talking Untold Stories, we're talking about like things that were popular but haven't been like reintroduced into popular media recently. So like, you know, how many of the Arabian Nights stories do you know aside from like Aladdin and the 40 Thieves? So or Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, and then the story of Aladdin, and like there's really not very many, but there's a lot of them that haven't really been reintroduced into more popular ideas, so or more popular media. So that might be what it's referring to, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm gonna have to spend my hiatus reading about that. Well, yeah. Teenage Henry. I mean, like, you know, Teenage Henry is kind of his fault for why they ended up with Jekyll and Hyde, but it's, you know, it happened. No, because I think that they said it was like the Midtown Library. Like they would have said like the New York Public Library, and I would have noticed that. But like I think they said, like Emma said, the Midtown Public Library. So it was a really weird side library. And I know that that's not what the New York Library looks like. Like I have been to like the New York Public Library, and that's not what it looks like at all. So like, I feel like this was supposed to be like a smaller private like a smaller library than what they did, what they went to. So, yeah, your questions are pointless, referring to Once Upon a Time stuff. Like, yeah, I realize that the questions are pointless. It is interesting to think about, and like for the most part, I'm fine with like most things not being answered. Especially like, you know, and what kills me the most are like people who expect interviews to come out like with Adam and Eddie to be like, oh, we're going to answer these questions. And then like they don't answer them. And I'm like, okay, but you realize the content of what you asked is stuff that like it's centric to what's going to be happening. Like they could be coming up later. So like, yeah, they're not going to answer your question. And you're really stupid for getting upset that they didn't answer this question. Like, that's why I hate the interviews and I hate like the stuff that comes out about it. Cause I'm just like, you guys are idiots if you think that they're really going to answer, you know, like, is Regina going to become the evil queen again in this finale? Like, they're not going to answer that. Like, come on, think about it. Yeah, Henry said, you're not going to get the crystal out of fight. And Gold's just like, I mean, it wasn't a fight. You're right. You have a point there. So yeah. Yeah, well, Violet's did have like that was shown back in season 5A that Violet was texting Henry. So like that makes me happy. At the same time, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That like because they were texting before too. Refugees because their realms got messed up when someone messed with their stories. That might be it. So like if it was like a larger compilation of stories, but then like some got cut out like that, or like some like stories that have been lost along the way, that could make sense. But then it wouldn't make sense for why the Three Musketeers are there because like those guys are really like we know that story. It's okay. So yeah. And that would be interesting too. I would really like to see if we go back to Emma and Lily, like, because we have like, and there was a post going around today since Gallivant got canceled last week, a couple days ago, like to bring in the cast of Gallivant, and like Lily's dad is Tad Cooper. So that would be kind of interesting. But I don't know. I would like them to bring more back with Lily. And just talking about that again, because that plot thread did kind of get lost along the way with everything that happened this season. But I don't know where they would go with that and what's going on with this. Like, and then, you know, we have to have Maleficent too. So like, I don't know who knows what's going on with that. Right. So, like, yeah, I mean, that's a good point, too. It seems the Land Without Magic is more about belief and faith that you can make things happen rather than wands and spells and potions. I think that's why Emma seems to be able to do more with less production than Regina or Zelena because she was raised in our world. So deep down, that's the magic she's tuned to more. And that's a good thing. Like, that's a good point. Like, she just kind of, you know, does this, whereas, like, there's a lot of research and potion making and spell books and everything, before Regina and Zelena tend to do things, but I think that's also like a factor of just like how they were trained. And like I think I've talked about this before about how like Emma really didn't get a hold of her magic until like Elsa was able to teach her. And you can like, and JMO has talked about this as well, about how you can really see like where like Georgina used Elsa's magic in very like this, and like that's when Emma kind of does her laser hands, I guess if that's what we're gonna call it. That's really where like she gets that, and that's the same move that Elsa does. So like if Emma had been able to click more with Regina and her teaching styles, then that's definitely would be where that comes from. Then she would have probably been a little bit more showy, I guess, with it. But like Emma tends to be like, I think, like I always think of Avatar, the cartoon, The Last Airbender, when this happens, because like all of the bending styles are based on different types of martial arts, and like Elsa has a very water bender type of movement when she does things with her hands. So she's very like fluid and like uses her whole body to like kind of push forward, and like Emma does that as well. Whereas like Regina is very like Regina and like Rumpelstiltskin does this as well, and like you can see the same thing with Cora, because the three of them kind of were like Rumpel taught Cora and then also Regina. So like there's very much a like quick like pop it, like twist your hand and like there's the fireball, or like set and like push. There's not like fluid. It's just like set yourself, brace yourself, and then push. There's not a lot of like fluidity and moving around with that. So there, I guess like the closest thing with that would be like earthbenders tend to be very like stiff and then go. So that would be kind of the style that I would compare Rumple and Regina to as well. And then like just like in the hand motions of like who, like when they vanished, like, you know, like when Killian was the Dark One and had magic for about 4 seconds, like he was very like all over the place, very uncontrolled, and like everybody, like most of the others are just very like flick their hand or like twist very quick, like fluid twisting, or just any kind of like, everybody has a very different style for how they portray their magic. And I'm always very fascinated to see like where it bleeds over, and like you can see who taught who else and where they pull their tricks from. So that's kind of my favorite meta thing to study, is just like the different magic and like how they express it. So yeah. Yeah, with that's my thought was just like, oh no, Snow, don't do that. The conversation on the roof, just because, oh yeah, bad idea. But you know, like I think this kind of goes with Snow has a very, this kind of runs with Snow's track record of like good intentions, not so good results. This is fairly consistent with the character, at least. So yeah. Yeah, it was like, that was like, it just kind of came to me of like, oh yeah, that's kind of like the when the Face of Both thing happened. It was like, what? But then like, but that had been plaguing Doctor Who for, you know, 2-3 seasons, and just to have that casually like, oh yeah, BT Dubs, this happened, but like nobody was really wondering about that, about like Violet's dad. So like just to have that really like, and I want to know like what his name is now, because I forget what his name is. So I want to see if it matches up with what the actual kid from the Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court. I would like to see how that matches up. So yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so like, yeah, and just the outside of the library, like there are other buildings in Vancouver that they could have used to mimic the New York Public Library, but that was not where they went. Sorry, just kind of reading through. Yeah, Emma's struggle was like, she had the spell books and like she just couldn't do it because she didn't have a grasp on it. And I've kind of thought more about like what Emma's magic must feel like to her before she got control of it. So like Regina is very much like study, like, and that's just how Regina's character is to begin with. Like she's very much like study, and then like, you know, maybe produce results. But like, and like Regina is very like on the emotional front. But like if Emma's magic entirely revolves around her emotions, like like she's like, we saw what happened when she got emotional and her magic got out of her control. So like maybe don't do that. But yeah, no, I've thought about that quite a bit, of like, just in terms of like Avatar, just because like, especially if you look at how Elsa and then Ingrid as well, like how they cast their magic, it was very fluid, and like how a waterbender does it. So I just kind of, I that's probably not what they were intending when they went with that kind of style, but like just the way that it's kind of passed through. I always try to think of it in like where you draw your references from to be able to like have the, you know, laser hands coming from. Okay, so let's kind of try to wrap up the season. Overall, I want to say this is probably the most disjointed season in terms of what stories are being told. It's not like the season was bad. I very much enjoyed most of it. There were lots of things that like I did have issues with, and I did like think that they could have done better. Part of me wonders if, because Adam and Eddie have this new show in development that's going to be airing this summer, like if that kind of took their eye off of the ball with once, and possibly left quite a bit open to writers who are not fully on board with what could have happened and what should have happened. which isn't fair to say, because like there are like most of the senior writing staff is still like the core people that we know of and we've seen for a long time. But like I do kind of wonder how distracted from this show that they were while they're working on their new show. So I'm really curious about that, and if this new show in the summer does well, like how moving forward that's going to affect Once as well. I don't know. I'm very like there were some very questionable storytelling choices. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not really on board fully with this whole evil queen thing next season, especially because like I'm not really sure where we're going next season. Like I know we're supposed to be staying in Storybrooke, which is fine. We don't need to worry about like running around all over the realms. But I'm very curious as to like why we need to bring the evil queen back and like what that is supposed to do to serve Regina's character. And particularly her story in particular, like that's really good English. Good job, Amanda. Yeah, so I'm not really sure where that's going to be going and like what purpose it serves. And I mean, it's going to happen. It's already been set up. It's happening. Like, it's not like, you know, me saying like, maybe you shouldn't have done that. It's not going to change anything at this point. Like any kind of fan's been complaining about stuff online, complaining about it after the fact does not change the fact that it already happened. So I'm curious to see like what's going to be happening next season. We're staying in Storybrooke. We have we have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We're probably going to be dealing more with the dichotomies of good and evil, as we always do. But like I think it's going to be more pronounced now that we have two beings who are pretty much fully darkness. We have Hyde and the evil queen, and then we have Rumple, who is probably going to be a centerpiece as somebody who is like, you know, he still has that one spark of good left in him, because then that would be Belle. But he's still mostly consumed by darkness. We have, you know, how moving forward, how Regina's going to be handling Robin's death. Undoubtedly, this is going to be affecting her for a long time to come. But the fact is, if she's going to be handling it better now that she doesn't have like this weight of darkness hanging over her as well. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to work moving forward. And then let's see, we're kind of in a lull happy place right now for most of the other characters. Like moving forward, I'm going to say that season 6 is largely going to be focusing on Regina. Because we have like Emma and Killian are like in this happy little, they're in their happy bubble now. They're going to be moving in together, and we have Henry, who's like, Henry would probably be the other character. Like I would say, if we're going to focus on 3 characters next season, we're probably going to be looking at Henry, Regina, and Rumpelstiltskin, because they're right now the people who have the most to play with. We have Henry with his unresolved anger issues. We have Regina dealing with like everything at this point. And then we have Rumple, who's probably like the balancing point between like, you know, this dichotomy of good and evil. And we have Regina, who's literally going to be facing herself. And then probably going to have more of Dr. Jekyll as well. But yeah, I'm not really sure where we're going to be moving forward from here, what exactly is going to be happening. So I'm very curious about where we're going to be going with next season, which is like, I don't mind that. I don't mind at all not knowing, because even like last season, we're all like, okay, so now Emma's the dark one. What's like, what does that mean? Like, we ended up going on this crazy wild adventure across many realms. So I'm okay with not really being sure of what's going to be happening. And it's only a couple months till Comic-Con, and they're probably going to be revealing a lot more, like leading up into the weeks coming up to Comic-Con. So yeah, I'm not sure where we're going to be going. A lot of this episode, like a lot of the major things of forgiveness and moving on, were the big themes of this half of the season. And I think that probably might carry over for Regina specifically moving forward, because like she did it in a way that's going to ultimately be not beneficial, by literally getting rid of her darkness, and then it's coming back to bite everybody in the ass. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work moving forward. But yeah. Thinking what else? Yeah, like a lot of things this season, the things I'm hoping for most are that they learn from the lessons of this season of like, I think the biggest thing of the season was they wanted to do a lot of callbacks and make things very big and callbacks to previous characters and seasons that we haven't really seen in a long time, which all is fine. Like we had Mulan and we had Ruby come back, two characters that we really haven't seen in a long time. We touched back with Oz, which we haven't seen since season 3, and so like we want to go by season. We had Ruby who was in from season 1. We had Mulan, who was a big part of season 2. Season 3 we had Dorothy and Peter Pan. So like we had callbacks to most of the previous seasons. Even if you want to say season 4, we had Cruella, and like just because of the celebration of the 100th episode. And like I think possibly it got away from them just trying to think like big and thinking like how do we could lead up to this big 100th episode. That really the 100th episode was fairly lackluster in terms of like big momentous things. It just kind of had the callback to like, you know, we have Regina recalling things as the evil queen and like working on trying to become a family again. And like it's like it was a good 100th episode. It was a good episode, but I wouldn't say that would be like this is the 100th episode. It's big and we're making a big deal out of it. So like it's kind of like but yeah, I felt like a lot of things felt very disjointed and very rushed. So going forward, I would really hope that like the thing that they take away is like, you know, if we're going to continue on this trend of like A plot, B plot, let the A plot, like let each one breathe while having like a better overall like idea of what the overarching theme of the season is. Because it took a long time for me to realize that the theme of season 5 is identity and like, who are you? And like we had at the end of 5A, we had Killian declaring that, you know, this is who I'm choosing to be. And at the end of the B arc, we had Regina choosing to be good and choosing to get rid of all of like try to get rid of the darkness from herself, just to choose to be a good person again. So yeah, so I'm very like that would be my hope going forward, is just like trying to make things more concise. Maybe don't think so much outside of the box. Because I do like it's fun when you're watching it, but then like afterwards you're just like, whoa, so much just happened. I need to like absorb all of it. Like it goes really fast, and it would be nice to like breathe a little bit. And I think making it so that we stay in Storybrooke, and we're just kind of like dealing with things locally. We're not running all over the place to different realms. Like I think it's going to really help that idea moving forward. So yeah, I mean, and I'm still kind of like now at the end, I'm still just kind of irritated about I'm just irritated about that one episode. I'm glad that we got Marintosh out of it. I'm glad that we got to see Mulan again. And I'm glad that we had this really awesome fighting between like Mulan teaching Merida how to be a better warrior within battle and like bringing Ruby back. But at the same time, it's like that didn't have really anything to do with the main plot. And like just having that episode to let the Dark Hook part of that arc breathe a little bit more would have been so much nicer. And I'm still just kind of like irritated of like that's where like we have this big reveal that Killian's actually been the Dark One all along, and then we just kind of like, all right, we're not going to talk about that at all. So and then just this half just kind of felt rushed in that like we wrapped everything up 2 episodes. We wrapped everything up in episode 21, and then we had 22 and 23. And then like 22 and 23 did a nice job of like just kind of setting the stage for what wide new worlds for us to explore moving forward. But at the same time, it's like this didn't feel like the season finale. And like going into today, I was just like, it just doesn't feel like a season finale day. It really just doesn't feel like, you know, this is the finale that like we're waiting for, and we can't wait to see what happens with this, and this is happening. Like it just didn't feel very like, you know, get up and go. So yeah. So season 5, definitely not my favorite overall. I've had my favorite moments from it and my favorite storytelling points from it, but overall not the best season. There are really good character arcs, but a little bit of a mess overall. So I'm hoping that as we move forward, we kind of, now that we've kind of scaled down on just like, we have the main cast and then we have the villains and Storybrooke, and that's kind of it, that we really just kind of like tighten up. Yeah, so that's where I'm feeling about it. So just to one more time reference the Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court, Kimberly says that the Yankee was named Hank Morgan and Violet's dad is Sir Morgan. So possibly this was a planned thing that came way back in the stables, way back in 5A, which if it is, that's amazing. If it wasn't, it was just like, oh, hey, just BT dubs has happened. Like, it's an amazing coincidence. So either way, it was a fun reference. So we are now fully an hour over where I normally end, and my throat hurts. So I'm going to end this here and now, if nobody has anything else to say. Thank you guys so much for a good season, for hanging out through everything that happened, the ups and the downs. And with this new format, I'm not sure how the fall is going to work, just because it's going to be more of a game time decision of what's going on with this moving forward, just because of my school schedule. I don't know right now how season 6, if this is going to continue, if it's going to continue in this format, if it's going to continue in my previous format. I don't know any of those. I don't know any of those answers right now. So yeah, I'm kind of in holding pattern, but that's a couple months away. Not to worry about that. So I will make a decision on that way later, but it's right now, I don't know. So that is it from me for this season. Thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out and chatting every single week. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a good hiatus. Be kind and generous to one another and all kinds of other well-wishing. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next video, whenever that is going to be. All right, bye.